Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to this Astrology, Human Design, and Jinkies channel with me today, again, Tan. So today we're going to be talking about Gene Key 37, Human Design Gate 37, which is associated with the zodiac sign of Pisces. But before we get started, if you're new to the Gene Keys, I have made an introduction video to what it is and what you need to be looking for to see if you have this particular Gene Key or Human Design Gate or not. I'll provide a link to that in the description box below. Do check out that video, and then you can come back and watch this one. And if you're interested in getting a reading, whether that's Gene Keys, astrology, or human design, then head over to my tanastrology.com website as well, where me and my lovely sisters, our soul tribe, would love to give you some guidance on your self-discovery journeys. So do check that out as well. All right, so we're going to begin today's video as usual by looking at the overview of this particular Gene Key 37 and Human Design Gate 37. So Gene Key 37 covers 545 degrees of Pisces to 1122 degrees of Pisces. Ooh, 1122, what a beautiful number. And it moves from the shadow called weakness to the gift of equality to the siddhi of tenderness. Family alchemy. In the dream arc totem, the vision key bird is the cute little sparrow. The life key animal is the dog. And the fear key underworld creature is the jellyfish. In the codon ring, this gene key is part of the ring of divinity, and it's associated with the amino acid proline. In the 64 I-CHING hexagrams, this hexagram is wind over fire, the human family. The invisible breath connects all in this gift of life. The programming partner of Gene Key 37 is Gene Key 40, and that's, of course, going to be a Virgo archetype. So I also highly recommend that you check out my video on Gene Key 40 as well, because the programming partner is the opposite point in the zodiac wheel. So it offers a balancing, complementary opposite energy to this particular gene key. And in human design, this gate 37 is located in the solar plexus. It's connected to gate 40 in the ego or the will or the heart center via a channel called the channel of community that has a shadow of bargaining, a gift of community, and a siddhi of synthesis. So of course, we're going to begin by looking at this archetype, by looking at its association with nature. And of course, we're looking at the birds here. So this gene key archetype is associated with the bird, the sparrow. So let's dive into that a little bit. So the sparrow is also sometimes known as the house sparrow. It's one of the most common and widespread animals on the planet. We have many families of sparrows here in our garden as well. And they are extremely gentle and sweet creatures. Sparrows are known to love having these communal spaces built in buildings, sometimes your shed. This kind of personality or trait of the sparrow illustrates the quote that says, "There is power in numbers." So the sparrow is said to represent community, cooperation, friendship, harmony, and the power of the tribe. Sparrows are one of the friendliest and easiest birds to be attracting into your home. They're very gentle, sweet, and they mean no harm. So if you have this particular gene key or this archetype somewhere in your chart, some of the traits that you have within you are going to be very similar to that of the sparrow, meaning that you're going to be somebody who is very friendly. You are a friendship-oriented person. You may have a very gentle and calm aura about you. Even when you're like angry, you can still be cute angry or gentle in the way that you appear to be angry, or releasing those types of angers. You're also going to be somebody who is very sentimental and just loves your family, loves your friends, and feels deeply for the people around you. It's a very community-oriented type of person. So let's dive deeper into looking at the different energy frequencies of this particular gene key. First, looking at the shadow here. The shadow of this gene key is called weakness. So what this Gene Key 37 represents in the story of the Gene Keys, as written by Richard Rudd, is that this Gene Key represents the balance of the yin and yang forces in the universe. So these yin and yang forces are sometimes also called feminine masculine forces or receptive and assertive forces. This is not male and female. It is just the two forces that we have within all living things, within all types of relationships in the world. And when we're in the shadow of weakness, there is an inequality between the yin and yang forces within you if you have this gene key. The evolution of human beings has been based on the physically stronger, being able to survive. Our evolution has been in favor of the physically stronger so far, but of course, in the modern day, this has changed a little bit. We're no longer, we can say, our evolution does not require us to be physically strong anymore in order to survive in the modern world, and maybe even in the future as well. So another way of looking at this is that what we perceive as weak or strong in the world is coming to a big change. We can see that in the modern day, people who are using their force and their strength to be in a position of power is now being looked down upon, frowned upon, as compared to in the past. And people who hold this vision of synthesis and transcendence are being given much more power. So in a way, this is a gene key that is representing the uprising of the feminine types of energies. We can see this also being seen in the world now as the traditional roles of men and women changing in some ways. And this uprising is an uprising of the yin force, because the yin is the feminine, the yang is the masculine. So this uprising of the yin feminine force must not be confused with women uprising, because that's not what it's about. It's not about women or gender in general, because there are going to be some really strong feminists in the modern day that consider this time in our era to be a time when women are rising and it's a time for women, and that the time for men is over. That's not the case. The reality is that the time for the yin is coming, and the time for the yang is lessening. It's not to be over, but it is to lessen so that it can be balanced with the empowerment of the yin force. If you are in the shadow of weakness, you could also be overemphasizing the uprising of the feminine or the yin. This is a shadow aspect, because if we have too much feminine, we have too much yin energy in the world, and it is not in balance with the yang. We just have the reverse of what we used to have in our world, where there was a lot of yang, there was not enough yin. If you're going to reverse that and have too much yin and not enough yang, then you're just in one extreme, one polarity or the other. Interesting, because this gene key is also a part of, in human design, the incarnation cross of duality. So it's interesting that as we're talking about the yin and yang and having this gene key being a part of the incarnation cross of duality. I don't know if you guys watching have that particular cross, but that would be quite important for you to understand the yin and yang forces if you have that cross. And of course, the most common interpretation, or the way that we do see weakness happening, or weakness, displayed in the world, is when the feminine force, the feminine polarity, is in service to the masculine polarity. When we have the yin or the feminine force in the world being sort of in submission to the masculine force, we have something that's very exhausting to witness in the world and in your life. Because if you look at the nature of the yin, it's already receptive, and it's already, we can consider, we're going to use this word for now, we can consider it to be weaker. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's softer, it's more receptive than the masculine. So why would you, there would not be a balance if you took that soft, gentler, weaker force within all of us and put that under or in a submission to the more dominant, or we can say yang, assertive force within all of us. That is just polarizing the yin and polarizing the yang even more. So the way in which our evolution is happening, and specifically in the future, we are going to see these reversals of this theory that we have, meaning that we're going to see more of the yang serving the yin and being submissive to the yin. That offers balance. The masculine serving the feminine is what can give us this balance. That is, again, not to say men serving women. It's not about that. It's the masculine, the yang, serving the yin. So I want to talk about this specifically for men and women, this part of the video for men and women who identify as who are biologically male and who identify as also being men, and for women who are biologically female and identify as being women. If you identify as that and you're in the shadow of weakness here as the man, you will ignore this need to balance the yin principles altogether. If you are the woman, you could be in the extreme of diving into the competitive patriarchal world of work, of employment, of relationships, and polarizing the yang. You're squeezing, forcing the yang out of you, if that kind of made sense. So therefore, one of the things that we can also say here, and this is written in Richard Rudd's book, is that one of the greatest shadow of the 37 gene key is the identification or the over-identification with your gender in the first place. So this really brings up a lot of questions, around what do you identify with in your gender? And I think to give yourself any gender at all, if that kind of made sense, is an identification. And even if you are, let's say, biologically woman, but you want to be identified as masculine or as a man, that is still a shadow of the 37th gene key. If you are a biological man and you want to identify as a woman, that is still the shadow of that, because that's polarizing. And to escape that polarism, or to transcend from that polarism, is to not identify anything. Is that there's parts of you that is masculine, there's parts of you that is feminine. Maybe your mind is more masculine, your emotions are more feminine. Maybe when you eat, you are more masculine, and when you dance, you feel like you're more feminine in whatever way, shape, or form that means for you. So you're just a mix of both of these polarities, and you're a mix of different percentages and different whatever in there that is not just one or the other, not in the neglect of the other, not in a rebellion of the other. I hope that's kind of making sense. The deeper fear that lies behind why we may be in the polarity of weakness is that we fear deep down that we do not have support. You may not feel like you are part of the whole, and that there may not be anything supporting you. There is a lack of this deep trust in the collective and in the fact that you are just human. It's hard for you to trust that you're just human, that you're a mix and match of everything. To feel like that makes you feel like, well, you're not going to be supported by the people around you, if that kind of made sense. Like to say, because you're going against the traditional labeling or identification of male or female. And sometimes when we do that, of course, in our history, in our past, there is this sort of, well, maybe not so much now in the modern world, but definitely there was a point in time when it was considered against the law, or you can be banished or ostracized for questioning your gender or wanting to be of different types of gender within yourself. And religion is one of the things that does go against this. Some religions, not all religions, but there are certain religions that is still going against this type of questioning or, curiosities of not wanting to be one or the other, but wanting to be a variety of different things inside of yourself. And yet that does cause that rebellion of people, going against what religion has and then identifying completely with something else. So it's a really interesting topic to ponder on and to discuss. But what we want to move on from, what we want to kind of like move away from, is this, the laws and the rules of religion. We want to move away from that to embodiment, to really coming back to your body, and to realize that there's many facets of your body, that you're just multidimensional, and to embrace the duality. That yes, there are going to be some biologically female person who identifies a lot with the things that are traditionally feminine, and that's okay. There's going to be some biologically female person that's going to identify with some things that are traditionally female, but also some things that are not traditionally female, and some things that are feminine, and some things that are going to be masculine, they're going to identify with that, traditionally masculine. Some things that are not traditionally masculine, they're going to identify with that. And then there's going to be some biologically male man who is going to identify with traditional male things. But that man that identifies with a lot of traditional male things may also identify with a lot of traditional female things. There's just dualities that exist and varieties and a multitude of dimensions that exist within the yin and yang polarities within someone. So when you have the 37th shadow in the repressive state, this is called over-sentimental. And of course, you're going to have both repressive and reactive. They're going to switch back and forth in your life. In the repressive, it's called over-sentimental. So this is when you are living your life and you're ruled by your emotions, not by your heart. So you become the victim of your emotions rather than you let your heart rule you. And the difference between being ruled by the emotions and the heart is that the heart is always trusting in the support of the people around you. The emotions has traumas and fears connected with it, and it acts in a way where it, can create drama. You can kind of create drama so that you escape certain fears that you have about not trusting in the support of the people around you. So you don't trust in the support of the people around you, but you don't really look into that. You just create drama. So you let your emotions rule you. So you create drama and become the victim of your emotions so that you can escape needing to look at the fear that you have of not having support around you. You repress some of your own fears through a dreamy mentality as well. You may speak great things about humanity, but lack a stand, lack the inner strength to take a stand for itself. You over-process at the emotional levels. Like I said, you create these dramas, and you can be very draining for the people around you. You are addicted to emotional states as a deeper means to escape the deeper fears, as a means to escape the deeper fears inside of you, which is the fears of not having support, not trusting in the universe. You can also have the reactive nature of this weakness, which is called cruel. So the reactive nature manifests as somebody who only sees inequality in the world and in situations, especially female inequalities. They feel very, very strongly about that. And they act out in cruel ways. They are a victim of their emotions when they act out on inequality. So, for example, they may see certain inequalities in a particular situation, and they act out by getting angry at the abuser, and we can say abuser, or they act out by getting angry at the person who is discriminating in some ways without thinking of or doing anything productive or coming up with any radical solutions or changes. They just can't control their anger, and they will become a victim to their emotions by acting out in that way. Or you could be over sentimental. I mean, you could be fierce, or you could have a fear of over sentimentality, meaning that if there's people around you who are very emotional, who are processing a lot of their emotions, instead of holding space for them, you become a little bit cruel. So you tell them to stop. You abuse them in that way, and you force them to have to stop feeling what they're feeling. So how can we turn this shadow of weakness into the gift of equality? And I think I may have already talked a lot about how that can actually be done already, just talking about the shadow itself. But yeah, let's see if there's anything else that might come through as we talk about this. So Richard Rudd does mention that this gift of equality requires you to live out of your heart above all else, not from your head, not from your emotions, but from your heart. And when you're in the gift of equality, you begin to view the whole world as one family unit. All humanity is one family. So if we look back at that situation, right, where maybe you viewed inequality, somebody is, discriminating against somebody else, or being a little bit mean or bullying somebody else, right? In that situation, if you're in the gift of equality, you see those two people equally. Both of them are your family, right? Imagine that one of them is your brother, one of them is your sister. You would not abuse your sister. You would not get angry and lash out at your sister who is bullying, or your brother who's the bully in the situation in that cruel way, because they're a part of your family. You will try to help them in some ways. Not to say that you have to create codependency, but you will give them some kind of support so that they can become better, they can grow, and they can evolve, instead of lashing out just to get out your anger, because it's unequal, because there's inequality here, and then there's nothing else to be done, and you don't even view that person as a part of your family unit. So that's the difference here with weakness and inequality and equality. And the reason why you are able to do this is, yes, one of them is because you can see that everybody in the world, every human being is one family, but also you understand the timeline of humanity. You understand that the social fabric of all cultures cannot be ironed out or forced out, that they have to be phased out, that there's a phase, an era for everything. When you're in the gift of equality, you understand that the psyche of human beings needs to be addressed. And when we can find balance within our psyche, we don't even need external religion to hold down or to provide us with morality. We just naturally are good and moral as human beings. You will be somebody that's not supporting patriarchy and not supporting matriarchy, but you understand that there is a single stream of consciousness that will allow us to experience the true meaning of the word family. You have a new vision for family. You understand that family has been restricted to certain gene pools or bloodlines or tribe, but that particular tribe or gene pool or family is still living under the system of a hierarchy. So what that means is when you're living under the system of a hierarchy, that particular family is still competing with other families for money, for status, for recognition in this type of hierarchical model. And there's even competition within the family itself, brothers and sisters competing with each other. There's too much emphasis on overachievement when we are living under a hierarchical type of a system, because we feel like we have to be on top of others, we have to climb up. So your vision of a better family for the world means that the family is not limited to just that gene pool or that bloodline anymore. That family extends to everyone. The whole world is a family unit. If we could view everybody as a family unit, how beautiful would that be if we called the person, the stranger walking down the street, as our sister or as our brother? Just using this word, sister and brother, to somebody who is not from your bloodline already creates a different type of relating that is really beautiful. There are now, we can say, I'm not sure which generation it is, but new children that are being born in the modern day that have a different, so our DNA is always changing as human beings, right? And with the new generations that are being born, their DNA carries a different substructure than in the past, and they need a different level of consciousness from families and from parents in order for them to grow and evolve, in a beautiful way, and to kind of support their collective awareness. And this new this new requirement for the future of a better family requires the need to give, requires the ability to be able to give without needing anything in return. We don't always see that within families in the past, maybe sometimes today as well. There isn't that giving quality without needing something in return. It isn't all true love. And, you can even sometimes see that within Asian families where, parents expect their children to, when children make enough money, they expect their children to give them that money to support them or to take care of them when they get old, because they took care of their kids when their kids were babies. So if the kids grow up and are capable, they have to take care of them when they get older. That's not really true love. It just puts so much pressure on the child. And it creates this really weird, codependent dynamic where the child is not able to, first of all, be free to do as they want in their life, to be who they really are, because they have to keep considering and taking care of their parents. And two, it doesn't allow the child to see beyond that family, that the bloodline of the family. It doesn't allow the child to expand on their family unit in a way where there is true love, where they don't have to ask for anything in return. Friends just stay as friends. Friends don't become families because they have that family. They have responsibility that they have to cater to. So this type of bartering, of course, bartering and negotiations exists in governments, in work, but it also exists in family units. And that is when it gets really, it's like it stops us from having to experience true love. But when you're in the gift of equality, you realize that just the act of giving is the act of receiving. already. Your heart just becomes full when you give. The parent just realized that the moment they just give to their child, they're already receiving so much. They don't have to ask for the child to do something for them in return when they get old. And one of the main practices to do in order to be able to give in this way is to learn to give to yourself first. It is through the love of your own self that you find the love for others. If you know how to give to yourself, you will know how to give to another person. And you will know why you have to give to another person. In order to support another, you must first ask your heart how you can best support yourself. And out of that, you'll find the answer to how you can give so that both the giver and the receiver feels fulfilled. This is true friendship. It's not about asking for anything in return. This is real friendship. And friendship is the foundation of an amazing marriage. Friendship is the foundation of an amazing family as well. Friendship is the basis for an amazing co-worker type of relationship. Also, when you're in the gifts of equality, you're the type of person that wants to connect globally with everybody and wants to make like the whole world as much of a family as possible. So you'll find that you're like networking with people from different countries. You're just kind of like doing that, and it's very beautiful. So the gifts of equality with Gene Key 37 has 3 core principles in a community, in a family, in a community. And the 3 core principles that is required in these communities, as written by Richard Rudd, is 1, the support of the earth. A great community supports the earth as well. Number 2 is empowerment. And number 3, nourishment of humanity as a whole. A great community is not only within itself and nourishes itself, but it nourishes the rest of humanity, the rest of the world. So when we get to the siddhi of tenderness, so like I mentioned with all my Gene Key videos, that I would prefer to not go too deep into the siddhi or talk too much about it, because the siddhi is really a state of being that is enlightened. And so you don't have to do anything anymore. The siddhi will dawn upon you the more that you are playing out the gift of your particular gene key. So the siddhi of tenderness here has a motherly essence to it. As Richard Rudd mentions, it is about the love between the mother and the child. It's that tenderness. And he also talks about Jesus as being connected with the figure of the lamb, because the lamb is also the animal here for this archetype as well. And that type of tenderness of the lamb is representing the fact that we as humanities are the lamb, and that we trust in the universal spirit that holds us in tenderness, like the way that a mother cradles a child. How loving and beautiful. And ironically, tenderness is not about like being all good, but it is sometimes about dealing with our shadow in a way that is gentle and soft. It is about bowing down to the devil or the darker parts within all of us, instead of pushing it or repressing it away. So by being tender with ourselves first, we will begin to develop a trust that the universe can be tender to us as well. We understand with the siddhi of tenderness here, we begin to understand that things like our sexuality or the dark feminine shadow contains the great mystery of who we are and what we can one day become. So we have to be gentle and tender with ourselves as we work through these darker parts of our psyche. Marriage is associated with Gene Key 37 as well, but marriage is something that we have given and identified and labeled it and given rules to it. But really, the true word, the true philosophy behind marriage is the unity between yin and yang principles. And it's really interesting that Richard Rudd does describe that the divine feminine, when it comes to the siddhi of tenderness, is actually going to dawn upon us in the world through men. So it's not going to come in through women, but it will come in through men. So meaning that the men will have this divinity of the divine feminine coming through them, and they will become more yin. And to counterbalance that, we can say biologically, woman will have more of the divine masculine coming through them, and we can see that as the independence that's coming through with women. It is through women's independence, biologically women's independence, that a new social structure will be born in the world that will emphasize or put importance on the early upbringing of a child. When a child is nurtured by both their mother and their father, they will become truly emotionally balanced. Biologically, boys are brought into the world in an environment of tenderness and support. Their inner feminine will no longer be compromised as we see it in the world today. And these biologically boys will grow up to be emotionally balanced. Richard Rudd describes family as being a structure that creates an aura of tenderness across the planet. It is the very softness, the qualities of softness that is insurmountable, invincible, and inevitable. So that's going to be the transmission of Gene Key 37 today. If you guys enjoyed this video, then do give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you haven't. If you already subscribed, then thank you very much, beautiful souls, for coming along on these astrology, human design, Gene Keys journeys with me. I really appreciate you guys so much. And if you like the effort that I put into making these videos for you, then please give me a super thanks. I would really appreciate that as well. It's somewhere in the tabs below the video. And of course, if you're interested in magical goodies and readings and art pieces and anything that beautifies and magicalizes, that enchants your life, then do head over to my websites. So you can find them in the description box below as well. And that's going to be it for today, beautiful souls. I will see you all very soon, sending you so much love and tenderness. Bye.